Right. Welcome, beautiful viewers, listeners, however you're accessing this. I'm Jen with the Bold Thing, and we're back for another episode of Coaching Misunderstood. And as always, I have got an amazing coach with me, and you can rest assured that the coaches that I'm selecting to be in these conversations with me have received training to do the work. We are practicing our code of ethics, and we're here to chat. So if you're returning to this, thank you so much for coming back. There wouldn't be a show without people watching it. And if you are new to this, just a quick little, you'll figure out what we're doing here soon, but just a quick little recap. You may or may not have noticed that coaching is a really interesting field where more of us seem to be coming out of the woodwork every day. And it's a really interesting field because I would say in the grand scheme of professions, it's still pretty new. And some of us are trained, some of us are not, some of us are certified, some of us are not. Some of us are doing more transformational work, some of us are doing more surface, some of us are really consulting. So it's the Wild West. And I started creating these shows as a way to just bring advocacy for the field to, to set a certain bar. And so this one is going to be a conversation with me and Emily Perkins, who I actually met through Ryan Hall. So you may have seen him. He's been on a couple of shows with me. And when he and I got done recording a show, he was like, oh my gosh, my friend Emily would love this. You have to reach out to her. And I was literally just sitting there thinking, man, who can I reach out to next to have this conversation? And poof, Emily's name magically showed up. Thanks for being here, Emily.
Oh, thank you, Jen. I love the platform that you've created, and I love like the structure of getting information out about coaching in a way that feels expansive and feels like kind of get at least what felt like it kind of dropped in for me was like getting it really like what the heart is of
Yeah.
coaching
Yes.
rather than like what we assume about it. So I'm so excited, and I love what we're about to talk about. So
Oh, thank you for saying that. And y'all, if you wonder what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about magic today. And it might be a little bit different of a version that's familiar to you. Because again, I think we all hold these words as whatever we hold them as, right? And so just a quick recap, like with what Emily said, you totally nailed why I do this. I think so many people hear coaching and they think, oh, I'm stuck. Oh, I want to quit my job. Oh, I want this. And a lot of people don't realize coaching is really a tool for anything and everything, which I think people are starting to see through these shows, but it goes a lot deeper than a lot of people realize. And I just see so many people out there who are considering being a coach or hiring a coach, and it's so overwhelming. They don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. And, I think what I see a lot is people are falling for a lot of online gimmicks in this field. And just because you got a pretty brand and you're well marketed doesn't mean there's going to be magic happening.
mhm. Yeah, I know. I find that too. And there's so much giveaway, which is
Yeah.
beautiful because it helps people to kind of get started on their own process. But I think part of what makes coaching so magic is like the partnership in it is like really connecting in with another human and walking with somebody. And I think sometimes the gimmicks or the stuff on social media kind of sometimes miss the mark. Sometimes they land and they open up
Yeah,
the door and then maybe create further connection. But I hear you. I hear you about that.
absolutely. And you all, you'll have ways that you can connect with Emily, follow Emily, whatever platform you're on. There's words down there so you can find them. But just really quickly, so you can get an idea of who I'm with today. Emily is a passionate, holistic healer and intimacy priestess. Love that. Lovingly walking with others back home to themselves. And I don't want to butcher this word because it's a new one to me. So for the type of Reiki master that you are, would you just mind pronouncing that word that starts with a U for me? I think I know, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah, happily. Thank you. Yeah, it's Usui.
Oh, I would have got that incorrectly. Usui. Okay, that's awesome. As an Usui, holy fire Reiki master teacher, certified life coach, esthetician, and group facilitator. Emily's magic is in her ability to create a deep sense of safety, intimacy, or into me you see, and lovingly guiding others on the adventure of treasure hunting their inner world. Beautiful. Was magic in your bio before you and I agreed to do this?
It was, but in a different way. And I'm actually so grateful too that you asked for a concise bio, because literally the day before I was sitting, and actually I think I did an Instagram post about this, about like, okay, now after everything that's happened this year, after the retrogrades and the eclipses and all this massive energy that's been shifting over the past couple of weeks, who am I? And it gave me a really great opportunity to sit with and get really clear on what is my magic. So I'm so grateful that you also kind of like gave me that little nudge to kind of like really get my talents into the words and the way that I would describe who I am and what I do.
Oh, I love that. And you know I'm glad that supported you because I start so you all when I send an email to invite people on the show, I ask for a few things. And I started being more specifically saying typically a paragraph because I think a lot of people who haven't been branded and marketed don't have the short bio, the medium bio, the long bio. So I was getting novels from people and I was like, this is amazing and beautiful, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Let's tone it down. And to your point, it kind of forces us to get more clear, right?
Mhm.
So we're already talking about a lot of magical things, whether that is being noticed by people or not. So I'm thinking, Emily, and you all, just a reminder, these shows aren't scripted. I'm not giving like Emily and I this agenda to follow. It's kind of really in the spirit of coaching. And if you didn't know, coaching, at least the way we coach, it's an organic dance. Coach doesn't come in with this agenda. Coach comes in with curiosity and we flow and we move. And it's really magical because you don't ever know where you're going to end up when you start. You might go down like 5 rabbit holes and pop up over here. You never know.
Mhm.
And that's how these conversations are too. So Emily, a fun place I found to start is just by asking my guest when I reached out and said, hey, do you want to just get together and have an unscripted conversation about how coaching is a tool to make magic? Is there anything that you remember just immediately popping into your space or any thoughts about that? Just anything at all?
Well, at first I was like, yes! I was like so excited. I was like, oh my God, talking about magic. Yes, that's a huge yes. And I loved your message because I got to really hear your voice and like feel you, which like I was thinking about this as I was walking the other day of like, what are like the key ingredients of magic, and like what does
Mm,
it mean? Like how do we actually like relate to, create, sink into, call in the magic? And I think one of the for me at least, in terms of how I relate to it, one of the things that resonates the most is presence.
mm,
And because we can't really sink into what's around us, what's real, or the magic of like the breeze hitting our skin, or the smell of wildflowers as you're walking, or like a beautiful sunset, if we're not present with it. So I think a big piece of that magic sparkliness of life is being present with it. But the other piece was connection, and like you reaching out and me being able to hear your voice and feel you instantly created this like little spark of magic, and got me excited, especially because that was the topic that you wanted to talk about. But yeah.
well, thank you for that reflection. Those of you watching are probably like, Yeah, Jen reaches out all the time. And you know, it's because I'm so committed to connecting
Mm.
and just sharing and wanting to be with people who want to join energy and enjoy the fun together. So I love that. And what I really got present to when you said presence was it's so true, right? And so you all, a lot of the stuff that we sometimes talk about, I feel like it can sound sometimes cliche, but what I think is really cool to share is I noticed that when I went through my coaching training and I've continued to be in the conversation in some way, shape, or form, sometimes it's in a really intensive coaching structure. Sometimes it's a little bit less and just being with colleagues, right? Depending on where I am. But darn it, my brain just digressed. Where was I going? Bring me back.
Presence.
Presence. I'm looking at the word and I'm like, where was I going with that? So I'm just going to slowly ramble and see if the word comes out. Well, it's not. But you know, presence really is it's the only moment. And when we're projecting into the future, like how can you see the magic right in front of you?
Mm.
When you're looking back and regretting or holding, how can you see the magic right in front of you?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you started with presence. Um,
It always reminds me of the four breakthroughs that we kind of go through, at least in our coach training through AC, of like the four stages of a breakthrough of like awareness, choice, action, and accountability, because we can't change what we don't see.
mm,
And the awareness is that first most important piece because it opens our eyes, it opens our awareness to what is. And it's kind of the same thing with presence. Like we can't tap into the magic, we can't tap into ourselves, which is really like where the magic is, right? Like the presence actually allows us to become embodied. It allows us to become aware of what's happening around us and inside of us in order to tap into the magic that's flowing through all of it, because it's just this amazing infinity sign connecting us into every molecule and cell of everything that ever was. So
yes,
I get a
I
little
love
bit
that.
emotional.
And you all, some of you may have heard me say this, and I love that you just named the four stages of a breakthrough because in my I hold breakthroughs as magical. Um, I'm in the middle of a big one right now. It's probably like my core one. And believe me, you all, there are times where I might not call it magical if I'm really in the mess of it and the feelings of it. But ultimately, I know that it is magic. But you know, Emily pointed out the awareness, the choice, right? It's choice, the action, the accountability. And I say something similar. I say, you can't, you can't shift it if you can't own it, and you can't own it if you can't see it,
Yeah.
right? So we have to see it and say, oh wow, and then we have to take this radical ownership and say, I do that. And then we get to choose, you know, am I going to shift this now or not? And sometimes we go for it and sometimes we maybe wait. um yeah, so I love that you shared that because I don't think a lot of people know the four stages of breakthrough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the place where people get the most tripped up is actually around the choice, because they might have the awareness of what's happening for them, or like that old belief or that disempowered story that lives in there. But the the place where it starts to actually shift is when we actually really choose it, when we choose whether it's to stay soft and rest and it's not yet, or to go for it and shift into something new, or choose that other belief. But I think that the place where we get stuck a lot is the choice. And magic is the same thing. Like whether you get into like the really wooey stuff, which I love, or like creating spells, like our choice and our intention in it is actually what creates the power of a spell or a manifestation or writing it down, or it's really actually that intent and choice that creates the power behind it.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I think a lot of us, and I was probably one of them before I found the modality of coaching. I've always been a very, very aware being, ever since I came out of the womb, really. And I really mistook that awareness for being enough.
Mm.
And when I got into coaching, I realized that it wasn't, because I wasn't moving forward through things that I was aware about. And so I love that you're bringing that up, and the choice, right? Gosh, I don't get, when I used to be a mentor coach and a whatnot. I used to write about this stuff more because I was always in like the coaching training conversation. And some of you that watching, if you've been following my blogs and stuff for quite a while, you might remember a lot of the writings I've done talking about how most people don't have what they want simply because they haven't actually chosen it. They don't think it's possible. And so when you don't think it's possible, you just don't choose it. And so, what if we just started choosing it? What kind of magic might be available simply from exercising our right to choose?
Yeah, it's like everything, right? It's literally everything. And it's also like a great opportunity to kind of take a look at why we're not choosing
Yeah.
and where that choice of not choosing is coming from. Like, is it coming from the place that's disempowered, like our survivor self that says, "Oh God, I can't go for that," or like, "Whoa, that's way too edgy," or like, "Oh, but what if I fail at that?"
Yeah.
or, "But this feels so comfortable."
Yep. Yeah. It's funny. I did a different show with someone yesterday, and she was also a coach. And she was saying that people are afraid whether they go for it or not anyway. So why not just go for it and be afraid going for it?
Seriously,
And I was
seriously,
like, that's true. And I've never heard anyone say that before, but I love it.
I love
But
that too.
I love it. And, I keep thinking about the two words that you said. And I keep thinking about presence because, for some of you watching this, if you are a recovering busybody or not in recovery, or you're really good at being in action and creating results by being in action, you might appreciate this. Me too. And it's largely at this point unsustainable for me and not fun anymore. And I'm done with it. But I had a friend once reflect. She was like, when you are still, I feel your power more than when you are busy and in action.
Ooh, goosebumps.
And what that really got me to see was I am way more magical when I'm not so busy. And, y'all, if you're listening and you're like, yeah, it'll rock your nerves a little bit to trust that you can generate more by being in less action. I get it. It's something I resisted for a long time because I was
Same.
really freaking good at creating by being busy, 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 busy.
I hear you, sister.
So I get it, right? I'm doing this work with you, and so is Emily. And I think that's another important thing to know is, the way we're trained, we're not just like, oh, we have it figured out. We know all the things. We're like, we're in the trenches with you doing the work, and we do our best to stay somewhat ahead of our clients in what they're doing.
My favorite part about coaching, and it's why I love it so much, and it's why like I sometimes love it personally. It's just total personal opinion, but love it more than therapy because like it's another human showing up to another human
Yeah.
to be like, "Hey, I get you. I see you.
Yeah.
And let's walk together in this." Like to be able to share personal experiences that relate, that can be like, "Oh my God, I'm not alone in that." Cool. It's just so juicy.
Yeah, yeah, like I constantly share with clients like the breakthroughs I'm in process with because it's such a reflection. And I have noticed working with other professionals sometimes who don't, it's a missing for me. I'm like, I want to know more about you. I want to know about your journey. And, not as a way to like deflect from me, but you're a mirror for me. And I look up to you and respect you because, it's why I hired you. And I want to know more about what you're going through.
Yeah, one of my best friends is a coach, and she reflected back to me something a few months ago that was really powerful. And the like coming to my clients as another human and sharing my life with them is just such an important piece because it creates connection and it
Yeah.
creates intimacy. And we were walking one day at one of my favorite fields, and I will always remember the exact moment when she said this. She was like, Emily, you're really good at loving other people, but you're not always great at letting other people love you.
Mm,
And the reason why I share that is because like as a coach, like it's so easy to show up as the guide, as the expert, which is
yeah.
not what we're ever really supposed to show up as,
Yeah.
and to kind of like take on that leading role and not let them love us back, where like true intimacy, which creates magic, is actually like allowing that reciprocal flow of love to like give and receive it, which is
Yeah.
also like we were talking about the masculine feminine energies a little bit before we jumped on, and that's also like the magic of letting those two intertwine and feed each other. And it's just so yummy. I
Yeah.
love that word. Obviously, I love the word yummy.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out. And for anyone watching, if you're like, what are you talking about, masculine and feminine energy? You all, in the energetic world, gender neutrality hasn't really caught up yet, and we're trying to figure out a way to make it more than just black and white, right? Because we know it's not. But what we're really pointing to when we're talking about that is that masculine is more of that yang sun energy. It's action oriented, it's make it happen, it's structured. And then traditionally the feminine would be more of that moon yin, where it's like, well, what if we get the idea, back up, and let something else come in and help us decide how to do it, which is sheer magic to be able to dance like that. And you've mentioned a few times in your speaking, like connection, intimacy. And what I'm really imagining and picturing when you're talking about that is, I would venture to say anybody that is watching this would be able to say, yeah, I've felt something magical through connecting with other people, and for me, it makes me think of those people that you meet and you're like, you're so familiar. It's like, I needed to meet you now and you just popped up. Where did you come from? And it's just so easy and familiar. And I can always tell when I'm getting into magical realms with that stuff. And y'all, if you haven't noticed it, pay attention, because you're going to find times where you're like, I swear the colors just got brighter. I swear by it. And maybe your senses heighten and you're like, I'm smelling more acutely.
Mm.
Things are brighter and something is happening.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Something's
always
happening.
Yeah, I liken it to like it's those movies when you feel like or it's those moments when you feel like you're in a movie where you're like, is this real? Like,
Yeah.
are you floating in a dream right now?
Yeah.
Like you feel like you're walking in a movie because everything feels either so vibrant or so connected, or like you're just in your heart and everything feels good. And like you're having a date where you're like, wow, this is just like awesome. The connection is so great. And yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And it's making me think too of, I don't know if this was the last guest coaching misunderstood that I did. One of them, at any rate, her name was Erica. Y'all, if you haven't seen this and you want to see it, just go back wherever you're watching and you'll find it. But Erica and I were talking about flow, and it's making me think now of, it's really challenging sometimes to see the magic if you're not in flow.
Mm.
And then on the flip, I feel like sometimes if you're, and y'all, we normalize, ebb is normal. We're not always in flow. It's okay. But I feel like sometimes if you're able to just get really present and find that magical thing, that can even pull you back into flow. And so many of these things we talk about, they overlap and they blur, because they're similar but different.
Yeah. 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 Even when you were talking about like the masculine and feminine energies and
Yeah,
how they can come off as black and white, but they're really just like these primary frequencies
yeah,
and polarities. They're not gendered at all because we all have both masculine and
yes,
feminine living side by side within us. Meet like with the intent that they create a partnership, that they create this way of loving each other that gets to kind of like get kind of exercised outward in who we are and how we are. But yeah, I love how everything kind of like weaves into itself,
yeah.
like this fabric of life that just isn't really either or black and white. Like it's just it's
And
all of it.
as you're saying that, and I love how you said it, right? Because when I imagine bringing these frequencies of energy more into alignment, I imagine it like really good co-parenting within. But
Yeah.
I would love to hear your take on this. Because what and you all, whenever I have a guest on any of these shows, we always connect for about 10 to 15 minutes before, because a lot of times fun stuff will come out and we get into flow state together. But I was telling Emily that I'm in ever, and like most people, ever since last year when this global pandemic started inviting us to maybe take a look at things in a new way. That's what I hold the last year as. People think it was awful, and there was some awful parts for sure, but it was kind of a great big invitation. And for me, my brand, my style has been slowly shifting over the years. And I think it just happens with each breakthrough as I'm ready to claim more of who I am in the world and how I want to serve. Right? Yeah, it's a process. So don't worry. It's taken me a long time too. 7 years in, and I'm like, not quite me yet, getting there. But for me, I am finding, and this is kind of what we're bumping up against, I think, when we're talking about these energies, I am finding more magic than ever before as I am just in this relationship with connecting more deeply with the divine.
Mm, mm, yeah. Yes, I 100% mirror that. 100% mirror that. And it's so funny that you bring that up because I was literally just thinking about that in the shower. But like, I like my hair is still wet, so like it was like 10 minutes ago. But yeah, how the divine is just there's so many different ways that we relate to it and so many different words for it, but it all comes down to the same essence, the same thing.
Yeah.
And like how, I mean, speaking of interconnected, like how interconnected everything is in this web of divine love, being, God, goddess, Allah, whatever, however we call it.
Yeah.
It really is like this, it's this essence that kind of weaves through our skin and weaves through like the beautiful bush that I'm looking at outside, and it weaves
Yeah.
through everything.
And that's why I've started using the word divine, because I hold space for all belief systems. I think ultimately we're searching and connecting to the same energy. And so I'm like, what, I keep trying to find words so everyone knows, like, no, you're all welcome here. You can be a Christian, you cannot be. It's all good. We're on the same journey. We're just relating to it and understanding it through different lenses. And I don't care what your lens is. I'm just glad that you are finding whatever is resonating in your heart center, right? But yeah, and so you heard as I read the bio that Emily is a Reiki master, and I was actually sharing with Emily that over the past year, you know, I have been receiving support that looks a little bit different than it's been traditional for me. It hasn't been quite so much of the therapy or the coaching, like one-on-one. It's been more groups, it's been more energy work, it's been more like introducing me into realms where I'm finding more of the magic. And I'm like, gosh, do I even dare what I'm about to share here publicly? It's something that I usually only share with close friends because it's so risky, but I'm going to share maybe, well, I'm going to see if how it comes out. But one of my spiritual mentors, I signed up for this program with my membership community, and I signed up for it last December, and it was going to start in January. And from the month I signed up to the month it started, I was in such a different place that I was like, oh my gosh, that was like $1,000 or more, and I can't get my money back, and this no longer resonates at all. I don't want to be here. And so the breakthrough for me, y'all, I'll share this in case it provides anything. The breakthrough for me was actually to not suffer through it and say, oh, well, eat the money. Don't show up if you don't want to. Call it a day. And so I was talking to my spiritual mentor, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but the dates and the structure, and y'all, I'm in the middle of a big breakthrough where I'm trying to find more flow because I've been a very diligent little Capricorn. Structure, too much. So I'm kind of swinging over here. But she was like, she's an oracle, she does oracle training. She does a lot of really interesting courses with star seeds and fairies and stuff like that. And she was like, Jen, she was like, I think you should just pick one of these courses and just pick something for once for you that's not always about the structure or the result, but just sheer fun.
Mm.
And so I did a self-study course on fairies
Ah, cool.
with her. And why I love her is she is an academic, so she's a researcher. She researches parthenogenesis, which is divine miraculous birth. She researches the star seeds, and her stand is, if we don't publish this and get it into academia, who are the they that we call, right? Who knows? But they're going to shut all this down. Mm. And so, y'all, I have never shared this publicly because people could be like, girl is crazy. What is she doing? That's okay. Y'all know. Y'all might know that by now. It's true. I'm a little weird. But I took this course and it opened me up to magic in ways that I have never experienced before. And you all, like, if you're wondering, like, what does that mean? Like, don't even like think about the fairy thing if that shuts you down. It got me more connected to the trees in my backyard. It got me more connected to the patterns in nature. And it just brought me into this new conversation of magic.
Mm-hmm. New conversation. It sounds like it brought you into a new presence.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good. And I will totally stand with you as a total weirdie, and also feel super connected to fairies. I always have since I was a little girl. And it's just like, if anything, it just helps us find like the joy and the childlike energy and the appreciation for nature and the connection to it. And like, if we can, I think, and this is kind of landing kind of across the board, but like, if we can find the essence of things, I think, like the essence of what fairies tap us into, and the essence of what God means for us, and the essence of what spirit means for us, it ends up being something that we can use for us, instead of it being something that like triggers us or kind of shuts us down or doesn't open up the possibilities of what can be. Like it becomes medicine for us.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me think as you're sharing that. I do, and some of you watching this may have been to some. I do a monthly full moon visualization where I start by giving some context around what is this month's moon? What does it mean? Let's breathe, get your nervous system zened. And I've got a background in neuroscience, and so it helps me kind of know the brain really well. And so I lead meditate visualizations through that lens. But the theme of Maze was unlock your magic. And I don't plan them out too much because I channel a lot in the moment and I don't want to block it. It's more about flow than planning. And I got a little in my head when I was leading the last one. It's unlock your magic, and you and I are talking about magic. And my thought was, I'm just going to go there. I'm going to start talking about interdimensional beings. I'm going to start talking about fairies. And the reason why I did it wasn't to get anyone to believe anything that may be true for them. It wasn't to say, hey, this is a fact. It was to say, hey, if you want to experience more magic, you've got to be willing to let your mind wander into realms you would never think to bring it. And so I just went for it. And it was kind of a scary experience because I'm using that as my playground to try new things because it's the people that I can.
Yeah.
But on the in the moment and on the back end, I had a really huge vulnerability hangover. And I was like, was that too much? Was that like too magic? Like, oh my God, is anyone ever gonna come back to these? But like that was why. It was just to say, brain, how big can you think?
Yeah, which is so beautiful. And actually, like, as soon as you said that, it dropped in so hard because that's exactly what coaching is too.
Right? Right?
Coaching is literally opening up the brain to new possibilities, opening up the being to new possibilities. And it's the same, that's exactly what magic is.
Yep.
And then the other thing that dropped in as you were talking too was that, like, it's also like magic is this dance with the divine, like listening and feeling. Like, as soon as you said, I love to sit there and channel and just let it flow through me. Like, it came in so quickly that, like, those channel moments where we're kind of basically kind of using ourselves as a partner with the divine is like it is a magical moment of this dance that we get to do where we say, okay, I trust you.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah. And like I love that you said that, y'all, because trust is huge here. I used to be so structured that to trust, I would channel even a yoga class when I was a new teacher. I had to plan every little thing out, and it was really scary for me. But with these visualizations, and if anyone watching does anything similar, and you probably find this with the work you do, Emily, in Reiki and energetics, in coaching, even there's just so much we can't plan or we wreck the magic. And it's new for me to even say I'm channeling it, right? That's like a new ownership. But when I led one 2 times ago, and my friend and multiple people started telling me after this point, I don't remember anything, but I came out of it so, whoa, I'm amazing. And that made me think, like, did we go somewhere? Because all of a sudden, like, I started trusting it when my friend was like, I was playing harpist music, and then when I had them leave like their moon bed in their house and travel out to the forest, all of a sudden I was like, and your harpist is in a bubble, riding along with you, playing her harp. And I was like, what the fuck? What just happened? And then I was like, okay, okay, I'm a believer that this is happening. And so y'all, like, this is relatively new for me, a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing with Emily. Like, so
I hear you though. Like, honestly, I'm a Virgo, so I'm also an earth sign.
oh, I get along so well with Virgos.
I know. I love Capricorns. So many Capricorns in my life. So I
Mhm.
love you. But I actually kind of have always been really grounded in my rational mind and my body before I started getting into spirituality like 7 years ago. And it was an adjustment to figure out like how to be in this world and also be in this world. And I think
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
my favorite magical moments now are when I'm so grounded in my body and channeling at the same time that I can feel the partnership weaving through me at the same time, where it's like the words that are coming out are mine and it's
yes.
so good. It's so exciting.
I love that. And it reminds me of I have found that drawing, I have a bunch of decks now, but I like to do an oracle card a day because they're very spot on for me. But it's just a place, to like put that intention, right? And the one I drew today was basically in a nutshell saying what you kind of were just saying. It was saying that for me to be able to benefit this earth plane the most and do the work, the most important thing, no matter what I'm doing in my business or whatnot, it's to be grounded in my energy because that's what the earth plane needs from me.
Mm.
And it was
Mhm.
such a beautiful, beautiful reminder. Um, and y'all, as we were talking about that action, I am in a place now where sometimes I have to just allow extreme, massive discomfort in
Mm.
when I feel like I should be in action, but I notice the action's ungrounding me. I have to
Yeah.
stop, and it's very uncomfortable.
God, I so hear you. I've been going through the same thing all year. 100%. COVID was a huge lesson in that for me.
Yeah.
Like I thought that I had a good handle on self care, but then as soon as COVID hit, it was like, oh, you think you need time for yourself? You need 10 times more time for yourself.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I even struggled with maintaining the same size of my one-on-one practice, and if I'm honest, I had to choose to back up
Hmm.
because I found myself for the first time in 7 years of serving as a coach that I literally had no space left to hold for anybody else.
Yep.
And I will never, bring in new people if I'm not good. So, it was a huge lesson in just serving.
Mhm.
And, one thing you said earlier that I want to speak to, because I'm watching the clock and I'm like, oh, what other nuggets do we want to get in? But you said something when I found or refound spirituality 7 years ago. Um, you know, I want to point this out because some people might not think like this. Y'all, I was really spiritual as a child, and I think I got away from it, like many people do when they are too big. Not true, but it's the story we tell ourselves, right? And I reconnected to my spirituality through music when I moved away from a very rural town to a bigger place. And so, I talked to my partner, Oliver, about things, and he doesn't hold like the divine and magic and spirit the way I do. But when he gets on his beat machines or behind his turntables, that mother effer is channeling the divine, and you better believe it. And so some of you might not be using the same words as Emily, but you might be finding this on your run, in your yoga practice, writing your copy for your business, playing an instrument, dancing. Magic and the connection to the divine, it's coming to you. And so don't let our language trip you up. If you're like, I don't speak that language, it's okay. It's okay.
Thank you for presencing that because I'm typically so conscious of it, but as soon as someone gives me the open door for magic, I'm like, I'm gonna give you all the magic. And I get that it doesn't always land for everyone because yeah, sometimes and the words are just they're so specific and hold so much charge and meaning in different ways. So I so hear that. And yeah, thank you for presencing that.
Yeah, because I see so many people who don't consider themselves to have a deep relationship to the divine or to magic or to spirit. And I'm like, I was just at your art show. I don't know what you're talking about at all. Where do you think this ethereal magic came from?
I
It was
love
you
that.
co-creating with something.
I love that you use that exact reference because the person that I'm seeing right now is an artist and also has that same, like, doesn't have the same connection or understanding or wording
Yeah.
around spirituality. And one of my best friends was like, "What? He's not spiritual? He beams it."
Yeah, right?
And I think we get so tripped up on the words, like we
Mhm.
get tripped up on magic, get tripped up on God, we get tripped up on spirit and spirituality. And I think like so much of it just has the ability to open up the possibilities like coaching does and to create bigger connection like coaching does and to like tap us deeply into our own like essency sparkliness like coaching does. It's
Yeah.
just oh
And like and y'all, like if another example, as Emily and I are in our last few minutes here, if this would even help. I was talking to a client yesterday, and not in a package. I just did a couple one-off sessions for her. One of her friends got them for her as a gift. And like many of us, she was really stuck in the story that she's not worthy, and
mhm,
her worthiness is wired in to be connected to, I am worthy if I do what everyone thinks I should. that's how she gets her worthiness. And, like, to point to the magic of coaching that Emily are talking about, it never occurred to her to get in the conversation of what would have me be worthy. And so, in a nutshell, y'all, part of the reason why coaching is so magical, if you want more of a science term, because you all know my background's in neuroscience, right? I can back up anything woo. Believe you me, I can back it up. And what I was really trying to get her to see was the magic that's happening here is I am literally forcing your brain, if it will allow me, to take it out of where it's stuck and shove it into your limbic system. And that's where your joy is, your trust is, your love is, your divinity is. You're in your amygdala. And so, you all, the magic really is with coaching, we are creating a chemical reaction in your brain through our questions and through our reflections. So for any of my science people, there's deep science around the magic of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
There'll come a point where my brand used to be coaching in neuroscience. And then all of a sudden my relationship with the divine was like, divine's all you need, sister. You don't need that word anymore. Stop trying to prove yourself.
Oh, I hear that too. Cause yeah, they're never not connected, like our brain is never not connected to our spirit and our heart and our
Yep.
they're all intertwined. So when you do affect the limbic system, then it also affects your nervous system, which
Yep.
affects like how you feel and how your heart opens up and how much
They're doing a lot of research on this, on how coaching impacts that now. I think the research is still relatively a little bit too new to say 100%, but they're starting to really get more closer
yeah.
to 100%. So Emily, we have gone down so many fun avenues. I feel like, and this is what I'm always striving to do, to bring the conversation in different areas to wherever someone's at on their journey. There's a way that they can maybe view it. If not, that's okay too, y'all. We do our best. But with all the magic we've already shared, as you and I are gonna exit out of this conversation and let it go into the ethers to find the people, are there any last things bubbling up in you that you're like, oh, I simply cannot leave the space without saying that?
I love that you asked that because I had something.
I figured you did.
Yeah, your intuition was right on point there. One of an old shaman that I worked with years ago said something that just kind of like one made me giggle, but also was like, God, that's so good. He said, we can kind of go through life and we can jump on the hard bus where we struggle and we're in the victim and we're just like, oh, this is just so terrible, or we're complaining, or we can jump on the easy bus, which is like kind of sitting back and being like, all right, whatever, I'm gonna let life happen to me. Or we can jump on the magic bus. And the magic bus is kind of where we step into what you said, ownership and presence and connection and feeling alive and feeling intimacy with ourselves, other people, and whatever your higher power is, even if it's just science.
I love that. And the thing that I feel called to go out on, y'all, remember to let the conversation meet you where you're at. And maybe for you, magic is just simply having something shift where you're like, all of a sudden, I feel like I have a lot more time. All of a sudden, it got easier to make money. Let the magic be whatever it is for you. Don't let the word trip you up, because we're all experiencing this stuff to some level. And as always, we are here if you have questions, if you have comments. You're more than welcome to engage on the place where I post this. You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Emily. And as always, if you are someone who wants to hire a coach or become one, and you have questions, let us know. We've been through the process. We get that it can be overwhelming out there, which is part of the reason why we're doing this. So Emily, thank you for being a yes, and thank you for being willing to be with me here playing and share your magic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the invitation and for like the just I think part of your magic is connection. And I definitely heard that in the beginning when you were talking. about how like your people and who the people who know you already know that you connect and you reach out a lot. And I think I can definitely see that that is just such a juicy part of your magic is the way that you connect. So I'm so grateful that I get to be one of those people.
Oh, thank you so much, sister.
Mm.
Oh, it means the world. And Emily and I are going to stay on for a moment and say goodbye to each other, but we're going to say goodbye to you all for now. And again, if there's anyone that you're thinking of would benefit to see this, please share it. Very often it's when my people are looking out for me and they share stuff where I'm like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. So maybe you get to be someone else's magic as you share a conversation about magic. I don't know.
Love it.
And I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for being here.